So this is an interesting thing here that that Josephine shares, and this is happening. What a setup! This is happening. So here's something. This is a show where I get my news. So the stuff that we talk about is happening. How about those apples, huh? Happening stuff. All right. A conservative network is filing a $10 million defamation lawsuit against Rachel Maddow. So Rachel Maddow has, and we talk about this on the show some, what a fall from grace she has had in the past few years. I used to consider her by far the best part of MSNBC. The reporting she was doing 5-6 years ago was, I thought, really stellar for the most part. And you can, hey, if you dig far enough back on YouTube, you can find videos where I would kind of refer to her as sort of the diamond in the rough in that network. The past few years, she has changed, largely because of Russiagate, which she did for her ratings. It helped her ratings. It's good to have a scapegoat. It's good to have a boogeyman. It's good to kind of have a mystery novel in real time going on. Even though it helped Trump in the long run, it helped Trump. It led to no consequences. It led to no evidence of much of anything. We all know what it all led to. And it helped Trump. It made him more powerful than ever before. But on many times on MSNBC, they would accuse people of being Russian assets, accuse people of having affiliations with RT that they didn't have. They did that to Jill Stein. They said Jill Stein had a show on RT. A simple Google search reveals she does not. She never did. It was just a straight up lie. And we mentioned then, I was like, she would have, if she wanted to, she could sue them for defamation. So here's what's going on. A conservative news network decided to take action. So what's going on here? Conservative News Network files a $10 million defamation lawsuit against Rachel Maddow. The lawsuit filed in San Diego federal court by the owners of One American News Network calls Maddow's on-air statements utterly and completely false. The San Diego-based owners and operators of the conservative One American News Network filed a $10 million defamation lawsuit today against MSNBC and political commentator Rachel Maddow for saying on air the network really literally is paid Russian propaganda. So the lawsuit, they're saying that that's not true. They're an American company. So Maddow made the statements during a July 22nd segment of our show in which she cited a Daily Beast article stating that an OAN on-air reporter was on the payroll for the Kremlin. Hearing Network's court papers say the reporter, Christian Rouse, is originally from the Ukraine, started his journalism career writing articles for Sputnik News, which is affiliated with the Russian government. According to Hearing Networks, Rouse was nearly a freelancer. Lucy, I can't see the article. Here, sit on my lap. So this person was just a freelancer for Sputnik. All right. So they demanded a retraction. This OAN demanded a retraction of her network. Included in supporting documents attached to the suit, a letter from the lawyer for NBC Universal News Group who claims that Maddow's use of the word literally is the kind of figure of speech that connotes opinion. That's a horrible defense. Okay, let's all right, so the plaintiffs disagree. All right. So here's why so they're calling it a figure of speech. She said that this is paid Russian propaganda. They're saying, "Oh, that's a figure of speech." That's a horrible defense. First of all, that's morally disgusting to say. That's a figure of speech. When there's reporters we don't like or news we don't like, we just call it Russian propaganda. It's a figure of speech. It's just synonymous for something we don't like. Imagine if they said that about anything else. Yeah, whenever we don't like reporting from somewhere, we just call it, we say, oh, that's Telemundo. But whenever we saw, oh, that's BBC propaganda. That's English propaganda. That's Scottish propaganda right there. That's just what we say about stuff we don't like. We call it insert country we're scapegoating here propaganda. That's a great president. Oh, it's a figure of speech. Come on. Well, it's actually kind of xenophobic. Yeah, but it's a figure of speech. It's Russia. Come on. USA. That's a horrible defense. For that reason, another reason why that's a horrible defense. So now, again, this is a conservative news network. Chances are, if I watch that network, I would agree on virtually nothing they're saying. That's besides the point. This has nothing to do with what type of news network they are or aren't. This is in no means a defense of one news network or another. This is just simply looking at the issue. When you sue somebody for defamation, and when defamation is, coming up in the sphere, what that basically means is that they knowingly had a smear about you, and that could potentially be harmful. So this they're like, hey, we're an American company. You called us Russian propaganda. You said that we're funded by this or that. And that's just not true. We're an American company. That's defamation. Now, and I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but in a defamation lawsuit, you have to prove intention. I'm fairly certain, like, you have to prove that the person knowingly deceived the public. So based on everything that's available so far, that will be tough to prove, because they're basing this off of, they cited a Daily Beast article where it mentioned that this person was paid by the Kremlin. Now, it doesn't look like they're saying it was past tense here. So they took some liberties here. Really, literally, is paid Russian propaganda. That's what Maddow said about the whole network. It can be traced back to one of their journalists started their career. They're from the Ukraine. They started their career freelancing for Sputnik. And they referenced a Daily Beast article who said that they're just on the payroll for the Kremlin. Now, did they say it past tense? Those are all questions there. But in this particular case, you have to prove malicious intent. You have to prove that Rachel Maddow knowingly deceived the American people, and that her words were, intentionally deceitful. If she said something like, yeah, some of the reporters were on the Kremlin payroll at one point, that technically you couldn't do anything to her for that. That's a true statement. If she used it in present tense, knowingly, then that's a different story. So what I'm saying is, looking at this objectively, it seems like they're going to have a difficult time proving defamation beyond a shadow of a doubt. Rachel Maddow can say, well, I saw this article. This person used to, they used to write for Sputnik. So it's technically like, but the fact that the defense is, oh, it's a figure of speech. That's not a very good defense. Oh, that's a figure of speech. It's an opinion. It's an opinion that something is paid for by the Russian government when it isn't, and it's an American thing. That's an opinion. No, that's called, you're just making stuff up. And that's a figure of speech to just call something Russian when you don't like it. When you don't like it, you just call it Russian. That's a figure of speech. That's not a figure of speech. Like, oh, it's a figure of speech. No. That's xenophobic and hateful. That's what that is. And MSNBC's been doing that. What's interesting is, I mentioned the Jill Stein thing. I think Jill Stein, had she gone that route, would have had an easier time with a defamation lawsuit than this particular, for instance. Because they just straight up said, like, oh, yeah, she's on RT and she has a show on RT. She doesn't. That was just a straight up, they just straight up made that up. But in this case, they have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that Maddow intentionally misled people and intentionally deceived. Did she or didn't she? In this particular, for instance, I don't know for sure. Maybe she thought this person was still on the Kremlin payroll. Maybe she thought, I don't know. I mean, based on the way she's behaved over the past couple of years, yeah, it just looks like a lazy aside that she shouldn't have said, that she didn't think through. But as far as the court is concerned, they're going to have to prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that she deliberately tried to mislead. And they might have a hard time doing that, again, because of the fact that this person was on the Kremlin payroll at one point. Maddow can just say, well, I was just, there was this article that said they were paid by the Kremlin. So I just, made that connection. And so anyway, but we'll see what happens here. I have a feeling it'll just get settled out of court. And again, you don't have to, this is not defending that network. This is not, this is certainly not defending Rachel Maddow or MSNBC. It's very possible that everybody involved here is a bad guy. Very, very possible. So there you go.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you wanna know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and